My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, I'm going to take a little break from spooky season stuff. This is going to be a very heart-to-heart episode on what's going on with Juan Francisco. But first, I want to say I'm so excited for two things. One is on October 25th is the third anniversary of Third Eyesight podcast. Whoop, whoop. I can't believe it's going to be 3 years. This episode is my sort of anniversary episode, which I think it makes it so fitting that I'm going to talk about what's up with Juan and what I've learned in these 3 years. And I want to say also, there's something really exciting happening on my Instagram. I have a giveaway valued at over $200 for your own personal intuitive kickstart kit. It includes an angel number oracle deck that is provided by Natalie Namaste by the Pulp Girls. There is a mediumship reading with me for free. There's also White Sage from the Wandering Bull in New Hampshire, a bracelet, a crystal 8mm bracelet by Earth Angel Crystal, and the book Signs by Laura Lynn Jackson, all for you to win for free by just entering this giveaway on Instagram. So go over to my Instagram. It's the first post you're going to see pinned to the top of my profile, and submit your entry, which is just tagging 2 friends and sharing the post onto your social media Instagram story and tagging the 3 of us, me, Natalie, and Daisy at Earth Angel Crystal. And you have to make sure you're following all of us too. So if you have any questions at all about that giveaway, please let me know. But it is to celebrate 3 years of Third Eyesight, and the goal of this podcast is to help you, empower you in knowing that you are connected to everything that is. You don't have to try hard. You just have to let go and let God, let the universe. And to empower you in knowing that you have a psychic ability, that you have intuition. And this kit is sort of like an introductory kit or a reminder kit for you to either start learning more about your intuition, about yourself and your intuitive ability, or to remind you of the ability that you do have. So enter to win over my Instagram page, and happy 3rd anniversary to Third Eyesight podcast. I love the number 3. The 3 is one of my favorite numbers. Now, let's talk about the tough stuff and the joys. So let's start with the joys of the podcast and the joys of my journey in the last 3 years. Well, the reason I started the podcast was for the reasons that I just shared. But it also, the first reason was that I had this experience, which is detailed in episode 1, how I connected with the soul of Ryan. And I just didn't know that I could do this, that I could be a psychic medium, that I could tap into the other side to channel messages. And so I created a podcast to talk about that experience as well as other supernatural paranormal experiences, because I feel like so many of us experience them, or we hear about them, and we're curious about these experiences that we have or other people have. So let's talk about it. And I do feel like there are so many psychic mediumship and psychic podcasts that are out there, but I feel like I wanted to bring something a little different. I wanted to bring a lot of curiosity, a lot of exploration, a lot of saying, I don't know the answer to that. A lot of accepting that we may not know the answer to everything, but let's talk about it. And I also want to talk about psychic abilities and talk to other people who work in the psychic realm of things. They can talk about their experiences, talk about their work, talk about how they work with spirit or work with their psychic ability and intuition. I wanted to encourage conversation about these things because I love talking about these things. And I've mentioned in the podcast 2 years ago, maybe, in the first year of this podcast, that I had thought about writing a book about my own experiences and my family's experiences with ghosts and the other side. And I've always had that desire to share stories, to story tell. And this podcast serves that desire that I have to tell stories and to let other people tell their own stories about the supernatural and the paranormal, as my podcast intro says. And the joys have been meeting extraordinary, cool-ass people. I've met some really neat people. I'll just list a few, and if I don't remember or I don't list your name, please know that it doesn't mean that I don't ever think of you, that I don't value your time on the podcast or my connection to you. But I'm thinking of, like, shout out to Haley B of Opening the Door podcast. Shout out to Joe. What's your last name, Joe? Joe in New York City, who was on this podcast and is a psychic medium, and who is collaborates with the Forever Family Foundation. Joe Peretta. Sorry, Joe. I'm thinking of Hannah McIntyre, who is someone I started listening to as soon as I had this experience with the Soul of Ryan in 2021, who has been like a podcast mentor for me. I listen to every single episode of that podcast and I adore it. I think of, who else? Mary Beth Thompson, who I recently met. I think of Peyton and Shayla of the Solely podcast, Emily and her stars, Things That Make You Go Woo podcast that she runs. Oh my goodness, just so many people. And it's just been, I can't believe I've created created these connections for myself. And I'm still connected to many of these folks on Instagram. And it's so amazing that out of one experience I had and a desire to storytell, I've met so many of these people virtually. I actually recently met, also shout out to Josh, excuse me, my lips are like not functioning today. Josh Sanchez, your spiritual best friend, host of that podcast. He had me on his podcast and vice versa, him on mine. And I just recently got to meet him in person in Delaware, where my family lives, because he also lives in Delaware, which is such a crazy cool coincidence. I think we found each other through the algorithm while I was posting in Delaware one year. And it was cool to meet him in person. And I would love to meet more folks in person. So we'll see what the future holds. And another joy that this podcast has brought for me is I have been able to, while vocalizing my thoughts and my ruminations about the supernatural and psychic abilities, it has helped me to sort my own thoughts and to process what I am going through in terms of my changing beliefs, because my beliefs have changed in the last 3 years. They've changed in the last 10 years vastly, but also in small ways in the last 3 years. And I think about, for example, I used to really, really, really believe, I used to believe in the power of crystals to a larger extent, and I still have crystals. I still use them sometimes as totems or representations of a certain part of the chakra system or a certain part of my healing journey, but I don't attribute a healing power to them like I used to. I don't believe that an object alone can heal me. It's my intention and how I use that object. My intention, even more than the object itself, way more, that really impacts my healing process. But that's just my opinion, and that is an opinion that has changed over the last 3 years. I wear crystal bracelets often to help empower myself because I feel them on my wrist and I look at them, I look at their colors, I feel the texture of them on my wrist, and I get reminded of, oh yeah, I'm a badass, or oh yeah, I am psychic. Oh yeah, I am a confident person, and I have come all this way in my journey in loving myself. And then it's like a give and take with the bracelet or with the crystal. So the crystal doesn't work on its own. That's just one example of a belief that has changed over the past 3 years. And some of the challenges, it is sometimes nerve-wracking, used to be more nerve-wracking than it is today for me, to share my opinions on things. Because a lot of my opinions as a psychic medium are not very popular in the psychic world. I am very... I bet there are many psychics out there who would consider me kind of a Debbie Downer or kind of a curmudgeon, because I am not just willing to believe everything that I'm told. I want to question everything. I used to be a Christian. I used to be a Catholic. I'm used to being told what to believe and just doing it because that's how God likes it. And if you don't do it, God's mad at you. I'm very used to that. I was very used to that growing up. And now I want to question everything in a way that's healthy and as respectful as possible. And in a way that reminds you listening that you have the power to question and that everything that you believe in and do should be for your highest good and your own self-empowerment. Another challenge that has come up is, listen, when it comes to statistics and podcast downloads, making money as a business, I have not made a profit ever in my business, ever. And I get readings booked maybe, like there was one month I had 3 readings booked. That was about 2 months ago. But most of the time I have one reading every other month that's booked. So I don't get booked very often. I wish I was booked more often. Not just for the money making part of it, but just to keep reviews coming in, to keep my practice going outside of practice circles that I'm a part of. And when it comes to my website, my website is not cheap to maintain. I am actually, after updating my website recently to make it look a little bit more pretty and clearer, I may change website hosts because, listen, couple $100, several $100s a year, it's a lot of money. And I got a lot of finances to take care of. And that has been a challenge of, and I am going beyond the podcast when I'm sharing this, but that's been a challenge of running a business when there are so many people like me out there. There's so many psychics. And Hannah McIntyre actually just posted something yesterday that said, I'm going to paraphrase it. It was something that she reposted that said, the reason it's feeling very difficult is because you're not scamming people, fear-mongering, clickbaiting. It's kind of true. Because listen, I could be doing readings shirtless. Not that I think my torso is the sexiest thing on earth. But I think I'm cute, but I don't think it's the sexiest thing. But I could be doing readings shirtless in my underwear, like an OnlyFans model. I could be like sticking my booty out, which I do sometimes, once in a while on my Instagram, in moderation. I could be saying things like, if you came across my Instagram, this reading is for you. Or starting an Instagram post with, somebody's out to get you, and this is how you can get rid of them, or here's a spell, or like, I could be doing all those things to take advantage of people's fears and concerns and worries, especially with the political season that's happening with the election in the United States. There's so much stuff that I could be taking advantage of to get clicks and to get people to want more from me. But I just don't want to do that. That's not what I'm about. And that means the algorithm is not really in my favor right now. Because I think what is popular are readings on Instagram, people on Instagram who give readings who feed into people's paranoia, fear, people who want answers right now about their love life. I want to know who my soulmate is right now because I went on 3 bad dates last week. I want answers now. And I'm just not about that. And I'm sure there are a couple people out there, just 2 or 3, who get annoyed with me because I'm here to tell you, life isn't meant to be a skip and a walk and a hop. It's great if it is. If it is a skip and a walk and a hop, you have a lot of blessings and you're very privileged. But life is meant to be a journey of self-learning. And I'm not here to tell you otherwise. I'm not here to dupe you, because if you get that soulmate as easy as a psychic tells you that you can, you may learn in 10 years that there's some edges to that soulmate that you didn't notice before because you were so quick to just grab them because they were exactly the way the psychic described. But then when it came to them leaving the dishes for 3 days in the sink, you get annoyed. And you're like, well, what the hell did I sign up for? Or they have some hang-ups, and as we all have hang-ups, okay? But life is meant to be like a school. You are going through classes. You're going through phases of your life where you're learning more about yourself. You're learning how to set boundaries, how to love people the way you want to be loved, but also defend yourself the way you would defend somebody else and a good friend when someone is doing you harm. There's so many things to learn about this life we're living. And I'm here to not tell you that's just going to come easily if you just think it. If you just think about your soulmate, you don't do anything at all, it's coming to you. That's been a challenge on social media, is to, honestly, it's tempting to want to clickbait. I'm going to be very honest. I'm only human. It's tempting to want to like put something cutesy so that people can go on my page and like something or, follow me. And I do sometimes, actually, half of the time, I would say, to 3/4 of the time, I post things that have something to do with a trend or I think I do, or like I stitch some videos and add my opinions because I want to get the engagement. I've said many times before, if I'm going to say, oh, I don't care about followers, I don't care about engagement, I don't care about people seeing my content, then why should it be on Instagram? Why are you on Instagram if you say you don't care about social media engagement? Get off of Instagram. Oh, but no, I need a place to promote my stuff. Well, then that means you want engagement. So let's not kid ourselves, okay? I'm human. I want engagement on Instagram, and it's hard. It's really hard. One more challenge is I think this one gets deep. I am in this phase of my life where I have much more self-love and self-respect. Here, I'm touching my heart area here. But I've not yet learned how to integrate it. Although I'm doing it very slowly and it's happening, but I have more to learn in terms of integrating those learnings about myself and the self-love, integrating those things into my actions and my relationships with people. And my relationship with myself, actually, as weird as that sounds and contradictory as that sounds. And right now, you're catching me currently on a day when in a week, when I've been through a little bit of a rough patch emotionally and mentally. My self-esteem went kind of down in the past week. And I told my therapist, I said, this feels really low, but it's not as low as it would have felt like 2 years ago. And I'm very happy about that. Like, I feel hope. I feel like there is another end, an other end to this. There is another side. And there are greener pastures, and I don't feel like I go as low emotionally as I used to. Honestly, 3 years ago, when I started the podcast, I was really not in a great place. And for the many years before that, I have learned to love myself at the age of 31. And now I'm 32. It's something very recent. And it's something that my breakup that happened this past year, which I still have trouble thinking about sometimes, thinking about that person. There's so much I still need to work through. And this is where I want to talk about spiritual integration. It's something that Daisy at the Angel Crystals, my mentor, had shared with me. It's something that I've talked about in therapy using other terms with my therapist. And it's knowing something about yourself, but then integrating that knowing into doing and into action. I love myself and I respect myself, but is that showing up in how I set boundaries with people, or am I still letting people dictate our friendships, dictate my friendship with them, relationship with them? Am I still seeing myself as a nuisance to people, seeing myself as second to their needs, when my needs are just as important and my desires are just as important? Am I not being respectful towards other people? Is there a defense mechanism that's coming up when something triggers me or upsets me? And am I then blasting off on somebody, or like just getting really upset with somebody unnecessarily because I feel triggered? So when and where is the knowledge becoming action? And I think it's something that so many of us experience. It's like when I'm trying to think of a Bible. There's actually a biblical story, but I can't remember the details of it. But I'm going to use a metaphor that's semi-biblical. You go to the mountaintop and you meet God. You talk to God. And God tells you these amazing things about yourself. And God tells you a whole bunch of things that just ground you in the beauty of the planet, the beauty of life, the beauty of the spirit world, and just helps you feel one with everything. And then the conversation, the active, proactive conversation ends there at the mountaintop, and you go back down into the valley. It's like, whoa, I'm kind of out of it right now. It feels amazing and it feels great. And how do I now live life? How do I apply what I just experienced to living my life with other human beings? And I think that's where I am right now. And I think it's going to be a huge part of this personal evolution, is going to be a huge part of where my podcast goes next and where my business goes next. It's time for me to get smart and to get real about my business. And what I mean by that is what I said before. I got to downgrade my website plan. I use Squarespace, and I'm not paid to say this or paid to criticize, but Squarespace it's expensive. It's not cheap. And for someone like me who does not make a profit, it's time for me to think of a cheaper option. And I need to look for one that doesn't break the bank. um, I need to stop kidding myself. I think, and I'm gonna share right now why I brought that up. One of my issues as human Juan, is I like to aim for something bigger than where I'm at. I want to have the amazing website, even though I don't make enough money in my business to have that amazing website, because I want to look presentable, I want to look good. There's nothing wrong with that. They say dress for the job that you want, dress for the thing that you want, manifest it. But when it becomes an issue of like money, like it's not financially smart for me to do this, I got to get real with myself. I have to get real with myself. And that's part of respecting myself, not torturing myself financially because I want a really banging ass website. Got to get real with myself. That feels so insignificant. It's such a first world problem. But finances for me, my whole life, they've been a major pain point my whole life since childhood. So I think this is part of telling my inner child, like, hey, I know you want the really nice thing, but there are other ways we can enjoy nice things. It doesn't have to be this way with this nice thing. Let's do other things. And if we do less of this nice thing all the time, maybe there are other amazing nice things we can discover that we've never discovered before. Yeah. Never thought of it that way, but time to get real. Juan's 32. He's an adult. Stop playing around. Stop playing around. What else? I think just spiritual integration has been, I don't know, hasn't really hit me until a couple months ago. Or maybe 1 month ago. Because I don't know if I ever spiritually bypassed. I think maybe, I did when I was a born again Christian, that's for sure. But in the past couple years, I did think that I used mediumship and psychic abilities before this year as a salvation tool. Like, I really don't like myself. I don't like my dating life. I don't like who I am. So maybe this is like something bigger than me. I can escape in this. I don't have to think about myself. And then I learned, Spirit loves you. And Spirit wants you involved in what's going on. Spirit doesn't want you to just be this clean slate removed from the situation, from the reading, from the connection. And when I'm doing a reading, Spirit uses my frame of reference and my life experience. And if I come from a place of really disliking my life or disliking who I am, I'm not going to be comfortable referencing my life experience when Spirit needs me to in a reading. And then the reading becomes very biased in one way. And that's not healthy for the client. And it's not good for my practice. And it's not helpful to my growth as a person either. Spiritual integration. And I know this won't be the last time I experience spiritual integration, or the first or the last. This is an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing process. And even though I felt low in the past week, I really have everything I need. And I am content, as I've said before. And that's where I'm starting things from. I want to start from that place. Not from a place of, I need a nice website and I need to look pretty. Has to look fancy. I need it to look fancy. Nice pictures. Buttons that highlight when you hover over them. That's not important. People won't click on my stuff if my website is not nice looking. Maybe. I don't know, but it's time to get real with myself. I need to get real with myself. Get real about my finances. Get real about what are the kinds of, with what intention am I doing all this stuff? Am I building these things for my business out of a place of fear? And there's nothing wrong with wanting to impress people, but there is a difference between wanting to put your best foot forward and doing something because you're afraid of what people are going to think. It's not helpful to do it in the latter way. So as we celebrate 3 years of Third Eyesight podcast, which technically would be 3 years of my business, sort of, it's kind of just kind of crazy how long I've been doing this for, number one. And number two, it's incredible just what this has all taught me about myself. And something you might have noticed is I recently adjusted the title of my podcast. I mean, it's called Third Eyesight, but then the subtitle is now includes the word self-empowerment. And I have been really called to talk more about self-empowerment. I feel like Spirit is calling me to talk more about that, in addition to the spiritual readings and psychic abilities. I don't know if that means I become a life coach. I don't know if that means I become a motivational speaker, which I would love to be, actually. But I feel very called to it. And so we'll see where that takes me. Yeah. Before we hop off, I want to share with you that if you're in New York City, on October 30th, I'm going to be at the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum in Upper Manhattan for Dyckman After Dark, a Halloween-themed event where I'll be reading cards for free. So you can pop by, meet me for the first time if you've never met me, or come and say hi if you have, and get a card reading if you want to. There's going to be some treats there, and the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum is in a really beautiful area called Inwood. It's one of my old neighborhoods in New York City, and it is the oldest surviving Dutch farmhouse in Manhattan. And it's just a great property. A beautiful, quaint little property that you would never expect to find in Manhattan. So October 30th, 6 to 8 p.m. Maybe I'll see you there. And like I said, that giveaway, sign up for that giveaway. 3 years, Third Eyesight, celebrate with me, enter the giveaway. You can get a free intuitive kickstart kit, it's pretty cool. So with that, thank you for sticking with me for the 3 years thus far of Third Eyesight podcast. And I'm so excited to see what the next 3 years brings to this. It's kind of daunting to think about, but I don't know what's in store. I don't know what's going to happen or how this podcast evolves, but I'm really excited to just keep doing it because I like doing it. And thank you for your support. And if you do love this podcast and you've never given a review, please give it a review. It really helps. Talk about engagement. It really helps with engagement. So please do that. Thank you. Happy 3rd anniversary, folks. And I'll see you on the next podcast. Bye. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.